When a dozen or so people drowned along Florida Panhandle beaches last month, the country took notice. However, the fact of the matter is more children die in backyard swimming pools than along the coast. News 4's Jacqueline Lambert is examining the dangers and with us now to tell us warnings we should heed. Jacqueline?
The Alabama Department of Public Health estimates 40% of drownings occur in swimming pools, almost all of them at homes. Even more concerning is that Alabama has the nation's 6th highest drowning rate. Drownings can happen in as little as an inch of water. Usually, though, they occur in several feet.
Participation in formal swimming lessons like what we offer reduces the chance of drowning by up to 88%.
Kelly Stakelum is Dothan Leisure Services Aquatics Director. She's acutely aware that 88% of child drownings in Alabama happen when adults are around. Being around and paying attention are two different things.
So safety does start with the parents. We encourage that parents to have someone that is a designated water watcher, someone that's always on alert and watching the children specifically, doesn't have a telephone or is not distracted by anything, but is a designated water watcher, even if lifeguards are present.
There are 3 tips that could prove more life-saving than anything else. Employ layers of protection. This could include certified life jackets and barriers like gates that lock to prevent access. Ensure all family members know how to swim. And last but not least, know what to do in case of a water emergency, like performing CPR. With these life-saving tips, I am Jacqueline Lambert for your Hometown News Leader. Leisure Services offers swim classes for the family, and they are offered in the evening time.
Jacqueline Lambert, thank you so much for that report.